With the rise in female sports in recent times, it's so important for us as S&C coaches to understand how to properly train a female athlete. Here are my top exercises for female athletes in the gym. First one we have here is the squat, a knee dominant, anteriorly focused exercise, primarily driven by the quads. First one I'm going to show here is our box squat. So a few variations of progression. Squatting down to our 45 centimeter Xpeed plyo box. You can touch and go or sit and drive. From there, progression can be to take box away and go full range. Bump the grass, 2 reps. Once you have got the efficiency in that movement, split stance, 1 foot in front of the other, feet stay planted. Keeping our center of gravity straight up and down, knee flexion, extension. Split squat. And feet together there, Jamie. From there we can finish off with the Bulgarian, where foot goes back up. And we've progressed from bilateral to unilateral. We've also controlled our range of motion. Obviously selecting the exercise that is appropriate to your ability and stage of season. The remaining deadlift, or RDL. Some people call this a straight-legged deadlift. I like to call it a stiff-legged deadlift if you would like to use that terminology. A hip-hinging, hip-dominant, hamstring-focused exercise. First one here, knees are soft but locked in position. Going as far as we can without rounding the shoulders. Moving into a split stance or a B stance where pressure is on the front leg. Back leg is just there for support. Imagine that's there to stop you from toppling over. And is our stepping stone before we move into a unilateral or single leg. You may call this a single leg RDL or a drinking bird. So progressively we're moving up in intent and moving up in the force that is produced through the hamstring during our progressions. Next up we have the barbell hip thrust, which again is another hip dominant exercise, this time driven from the glutes as opposed to the hamstrings like our hinging pattern. We've got bells set up on 45 centimeters of our Xpeed plyo boxes. We're going to start off here with a double leg or bilateral hip thrust. We'll go through 2 repetitions. Inhale on the way down, exhale on the way up. From there, once you've explored that option, we can move into a B stance or a split stance. You can see Belle's focus is on her right hand side here and her left foot is just there for stability and balance. Next one is challenging, and you might see the bar wobble a little bit here. We've got a single leg hip thrust, so Belle will take 1 foot off of the ground. We do expect to see that bar a little bit wobbly here, 2 repetitions, and you've exhausted your bilateral to unilateral options. Other things you can do with hip thrust is look at isometric variations. So Belle will push up and hold at the top for 10 seconds here roughly. You can do single leg, you can do split stance, and you can do bilateral variations of each of those. We now have the lunge. We're going to show you guys some different variations here. Lunges have a greater impact of deceleration and acceleration than potentially split squats that you might have seen. They also can tie almost our glutes, our hamstrings and our quads together, depending on the direction and trajectory at which you lunge at. We are going to start with what I would consider the easiest from a centre of mass point of view, a backwards lunge. So Belle's going to lunge backwards here, nice smooth motion and drive back up. We should find that the foot that is in contact with the ground, so her left foot in this instance, is the leg that feels it the most as it has the greatest point of contact. From there, I would say the next step up would be lunging forwards, where it's a little bit more challenging to push our mass back into that standing position. And again, we can now progress to a forwards and backwards lunge. So moving backwards, stepping over what we would imagine was like an imaginary cone or hurdle in the middle, not touching. Really challenging our time and attention with that leg that is staying stable on the ground. We're now going to take you guys through Nordics. So this is a knee dominant hamstring exercise that will complement the hip dominant hamstring exercise we did with our hip hinging patterns. We've got Belle set up in our Nordic station here. First variation is eccentric only. She's going to rip her heels up against those pads and lower down as slowly as you can, or at least with as much intent as possible. When she can't hold anymore, she'll drop to the ground. We'll go 1 more of those, Belle. There are many links in the chain that potentially we could work our way through. I'm just going to show you some selected variations. Belle is now going to grab this band over her shoulder. If you don't have a partner, you could tie this to an apparatus, but I'm going to assist her. She's going to do a Nordic return, go as far as she can and squeeze back up. We'll go 1 more without dropping. Again, we can go loaded variations. From there, we're going to move into an eccentric only razor curl in which she'll hip hinge first, be as parallel to the ground as she can, and then slide out. You can use ab rollers and bow sliders to also assist you with this variation too. If you are struggling with the Nordic, Feel free to jump on a hamstring curl machine or some bow sliders. This exercise here can be misprescribed. We want to be looking for high intent but low volume. No more than 5 or 6 at a time at max. Abduction is another movement that is very significantly impacted by our glutes, so a great complement to the hip thrust that we have touched on previously. Today we're going to show you first of all a dynamic hip abduction. We have the strap around Belle's ankle here. She's keeping everything nice and square. We don't want those hips starting to skew. Naturally, as our athletes get tired, we see that hip skew. And keeping it nice and slow and smooth. From here we can progress into an isometric variation in which she holds at the outermost point. And if she wants to increase her challenge, she can go heel lift off the ground. That gives us an isometric contraction in our calf and reduces our point of contact on the ground. Other ways you can elicit hip abduction can be things like side bridge leg raises, both with legs straight and knees bent, and even something as simple as a crab walk as well. Next movement we're going to tick off is our hip adduction, so the opposite of abduction that we've talked about previously. Really important for our groin strength here and encapsulating the hip strength as a whole. We're starting with a bent knee Copenhagen. We want to try to maintain a straight line between our shoulders and knees. We are moving up and down, giving ourselves a little bit of rest break in terms of time and attention. Next progression can be to go into an iso hold, in which she up and squeezes. That tension on the groin is experienced over a greater period of time. Once you've exhausted both those options, we can change the length of the lever. We're going to stand out a little bit further. So now we have a straight leg as opposed to a bent knee. Only point of contact is the ankle. We can work up and down. Same sort of options as we work through with our bent knee. Once we've exhausted that, up and hold into an isometric. If you find this exercise uncomfortable, it is quite advanced. Feel free to start with something as simple as a groin squeeze with a medicine ball or a basketball between your knees. You can progress to a cable adduction in which you are drawing the cable to the midline and then move on to these options here.